session. So, yes, our speaker is Messiah today. He's already on. And as you can see, he has shared the screen. Don't be alarmed by the long title, but he is going to break it down. I'm just keeping myself talking so that you know you're not into an inactive session. The session is on. I'm Father Sahaya Selva, and I'm the co-founder of the Positive Psychology Association of Kenya. And today we are happy to host Masaya Wakamoto, who is currently speaking to us this evening from Mexico. And it is early morning there. And we are holding a series of webinars for this year, as you know. Let me run through some of those upcoming webinars, just for us to be aware. So our webinars take place on the last Wednesday of the month. If there are 5 Wednesdays, it will still be the 5th Wednesday of the month between 5:30 and 7. And we'll try to conclude even a few minutes before 7. And we have a lineup of international speakers. Last month, on the 29th of January, we had Dr. Michael Steger from the US, Colorado State University. Today, we have Masaya Okamoto from Tech Milenio University from Mexico. Next month, that will be also 26th of March, exactly a month from now, we will have Pamela Miano, who is a Kenyan from Pwani University, but completing her doctoral studies in Germany. She's a member of the Positive Psychology Association of Kenya, and she has been attending several of our programs. She will speak to us on the topic of cultivating positive relationships. So we have international speakers as well as Kenyan speakers who are now living abroad and who are engaging with positive psychology. That is the scope of our lineup for our webinar for this year. In April, we will have again a Kenyan currently living in Switzerland, in Bern, on the topic of hope, intervention for flourishing future societies. In May, we have somebody from India, also a well-known publisher, writer, lecturer, associate professor of psychology, and a very committed person to positive psychology. His name is Anish Kumar. That will be in the month of May. He will confirm his topic. Then in June, we will have a presentation on the topic of resilience among refugees by someone called Tom Hendricks, speaking from the Netherlands. So you can see there is a wonderful lineup. The same link we will use every month. So mark your calendars. I will share the screen at the end of the session so that you can see the upcoming sessions. Soon we will be announcing about the character coaching program that will come up in April. And also we have well-being at the workplace workshops that our colleague Peter Mbuga coordinates. We are open as Positive Psychology Association of Kenya. We are open for consultancies and trainings, particularly topics related to well-being across topics that are of particular interest to positive psychology. We can train teachers according to your need. We are currently working on a program for Premier Academy. For the staff who are responsible for well-being and counseling. So we do from time to time, even we have done trainings for people, social activists in Kenya on well-being and flourishing topics. So we are open for training, especially for those who are in the HR sector. It would be an interesting opportunity. And then these webinars are free, monthly webinars. Please spread the word around, share, always feel free to invite your friends. What we do is 2-3 weeks before the event, we circulate a poster. Then we share it on the last week on the day of the webinar as well. All right, so yes, we have really, these people are making a lot of sacrifice, like Messiah speaking from Mexico this morning for him, for us evening. And so they are very, very valuable people. We need to really make use of these opportunities to enter into a conversation within the international body of scholars who are working at the space of positive psychology, well-being. All right, so welcome, and we are live on YouTube as well. So even if the speaker doesn't share the slides, you can always refer to the recording, which is available on YouTube. We always do this. Our monthly webinars are always shared on YouTube. Okay, so there are 40 people online right now. Let's wait if we can hit the target of about 50. Then we will start off. Yes, we are delaying by a few more minutes. So welcome and thank you very much. I can see some of the familiar faces. There are people who are always very faithful and faithful clients of our positive psychology webinars. I'm sure you benefit from this inputs that we are giving from the Positive Psychology Association of Kenya. Our Positive Psychology Association of Kenya was founded in the year 2020. And since then, we have had many webinars, maybe numbering now 35 or so. We have run online courses. We have run face-to-face sessions, especially in character coaching, which is also a topic for today, as Messiah will talk to us about virtues. All right, so that is where we are. Welcome everybody as you are joining in. We have, as of now, we have 47 members, 48. Yes, and shortly we are going to start. I will be moderating the discussions. So Messiah will talk, make his presentations and finish whatever he has to say. Then we will have time for Q&A. All right. So thank you very much for your presence here online for this monthly webinars hosted by Positive Psychology Association of Kenya. with a series of international speakers. This year, we have a lineup every month on the last Wednesday of the month. And today's speaker is Masaya Wakamoto. As you can see, his name sounds Japanese, but he is speaking right now from Mexico. Let me take this opportunity to say a few words about him so that we know the speaker that we are listening to today. Masaya Wakamoto is a leader of contemplative sciences and character education at the Institute for Integral Wellbeing Sciences at Telmiliano University, Mexico, specializing in the research and practice of mindfulness, character strengths, virtue, well-being, and human flourishing. I interacted with Masaya face-to-face during the past European Conference for Positive Psychology in July, this 2024 at Innsbruck. And I was present at his presentation, which was similar to the one that he is going to make today. And I was quite impressed by the scientific character of his research, as well as the accessibility of that area for even those who may not be scientific in their approach. Practitioners, what I mean is practitioners. So he has been working globally in strengths and virtue-based mindfulness, serving as a master trainer for the scientific mindfulness-based strengths practice. In positive psychology, that's a very popular area of interventions, briefly called MBSP, a mindfulness-based strengths practice. And also as a consultant for the VIA Institute. I'm sure many of us are aware of the VIA Institute, which offers the online assessment for character strengths, among other possibilities, even to carry out research. He has also been a lead trainer for the implementation of the Healthy Minds Masterclass, a neuroscience-based well-being training program with contemplative practices in collaboration with the Healthy Minds Innovations, affiliated with the Center for Healthy Minds at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. He studied cognitive neuroscience and psychology at the University of Manchester and psychology, philosophy, and linguistics at the University of Hong Kong, with research interests in neuroplasticity. That is how neuroplasticity is the adaptability of the brain and malleability of the brain. Neuroplasticity induced by metacognition. So that's another word that he is going to talk to us about. Metacognition training and contemplative practices. He also holds an MSc in applied positive psychology from the University of East London. He's an expert trainer, consultant in mindfulness and well-being programs in both academic and organizational settings, and a master instructor in various meditative disciplines, including meditation and other forms of contemplative practices, using scientifically grounded evidence-based approach. That's where I like Masaya, and that's why I invited him. Originally from Japan, he has lived in England, Hong Kong, India, Australia, Chile, and currently resides in Mexico. With experience in over 60 countries, he has delivered lectures, workshops, training programs, and retreats worldwide, promoting the integration of science and practice to foster human and global flourishing. So, my dear friends, we are today privileged to listen to Masaya Wakamoto. And as the bio that I read indicates, he really comes from a very scientific background, but he is going to talk to us about topics that we can relate to, namely mindfulness and virtue in the context of flourishing. So over to you, Masaya, please. Welcome.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction, and I'm really glad to be here today. And I'm really grateful to all of you for sharing some of your precious time in life in this space of inspiration, I would say, that I prepared for the public today. So the title of this talk is quite long, it's quite complete, the metacognitive cultivation of multidimensional well-being and the golden mean of virtues. But of course, I will break them down, break the pieces into practical wisdom. So this is going to be a little bit of conceptual journey so that we could have a little bit of glimpse of what could be scientifically investigated on the topic and subject based on perennial philosophical subjects that we have been studying and practicing throughout the history of mankind. So I would like to start this conceptual journey. I'd like to share some practices, of course, but for this webinar, I'd like to just map out different elements that I hope that in the future, of course, the present and the future, I hope that there will be more research, empirical research on these topics that I think those are quite important. So the first element of our inner transformation, that's where I would like to have the inspiration always, is the cultivation of metacognition. I'd like to talk about this concept of metacognition. And then I'd like to integrate the concept of well-being, which is multidimensional. This is more like a concept of integral flourishing. And then a little bit of this concept of the golden mean of virtues. I think it's a really important practice that we could incorporate in life, but there's not much research going on, but it's just beginning actually. It's growing in the field of positive psychology and the broader science of well-being and flourishing. So those are the three key elements that I would like to integrate in some way or other in this talk. So that's why the title is called the Metacognitive Cultivation of Multidimensional Well-being and the Golden Mean of Virtues. So it's about flourishing. It's about how to live a better life and how to contribute to a better world. So this inner transformation has been around in philosophical literature, educational literature, psychology, and all the other great thinkers. And it has been a universal subject. And I'm really glad that now there are more and more empirical studies on human flourishing. So in this talk, I would structure the contents in two broader areas. So the first, I would like to map out a greater context for human and global flourishing, talking about a bit of universal search in human life, what we look for in life in general, and some insights from different great thinkers, and the topic of human flourishing and eudaimonia, and connecting that with virtue and self-awareness. And on the second part, I'm going to talk about the metacognitive cultivation of well-being and virtues. We're going to look a little bit of some models of multidimensional well-being, as well as the importance of the conscious cultivation of virtues, which makes a difference from the cultivation of virtues which could be unconscious, but now we are integrating the idea of consciousness. So I'm going to talk about metacognition and self-awareness, and in the end, I'm trying to integrate this fascinating topic of the golden mean of virtues. So this is basically the structure of this talk today, of this webinar. So let's start with my own reflections, having lived in different countries. And since childhood, I've been searching for universal wisdom that could be applied to different countries, different cultures, at different times. And I have identified those three elements, not only those three, but of course, but three fundamental three fundamental areas of search in human life. The first is, of course, all human beings seek well-being and flourishing, seek to be happy, seek to have peace within, to balanced and harmonious life. So, so this has been quite universal in the sense that nobody wants to cultivate the opposite of well-being and the opposite of flourishing. So in some way, every human being seek this kind of connection and better experience in life. And the second is, I put it like evolution and growth. I think this is also a universal tendency that we all look for growth, we all look for improvement and evolution in everything, not only in ourselves, but also in the society, systems, and so on. So there is this universal search for growth, evolution, transformation. And the third element is service and contribution. Not only we are going to be happy, we are going to be well, and we are going to grow, but also we want to serve, help, contribute to others and the society and people around us. So those three elements are what I have observed in my own life and in all the interactions that I had the fortune to have in different parts of the world. So this is basically our context, and I think those those of you who are listening to this maybe agreeing with this search. So I put some of the phrases or quotes from different thinkers in this line of search. The first one is quite very popular, which is "Know thyself," attributed to Socrates at Delphi. And then also another quote of "Unexamined life is not worth living." So what are those quotes suggesting? Quite important to note that it's about knowing oneself, it's about self-examination, it's about self-knowledge, it's about introspection. So in life, it's quite important to have some practices or some spaces of inner connection, of inner introspection. And from the East, ancient China, there was a sage called Lao Tzu who said, "He who knows others is wise. He who knows himself is enlightened." So this quote suggests that the knowledge of outside world or other people gives us knowledge and perhaps wisdom. But in this sense, those who have deepened in the self-knowledge is going to be connected much deeper. And Buddha mentioned that the mind is everything. What you think, you become. So this transmits the inner principle of how mind or inner life shapes our life. So those are some of the insights from the ancient traditions. And I go on a little bit, I will add a little bit more to highlight what I want to transmit today. And Aristotle from ancient Greece said, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. So we have external knowledge or intellectual knowledge that we could read or listen to and learn from some outside sources. But those phrases are emphasizing the importance of looking inside and having the direct experience and insights from the inner world. And Aldous Huxley, philosopher and writer, said, there is only one corner of the universe you can be certain of improving, and that's your own self. So this is quite true too, that maybe we don't have control over different situations in the world, but here we have our own being, which is within the control, and we can cultivate our free will. We can cultivate our intention to make our life better. William James, psychologist and philosopher, mentioned that the greatest discovery of any generation is that a human can alter his life by altering his attitude. What it means by that is that transforming our inner attitudes or how we look at the world, we can transform our life. So this can be a bit counterintuitive to common belief that we need to change outside. But those sages or great thinkers have been suggesting to transform within ourselves, from within. And the last quote is Aristotle again: happiness depends upon ourselves. So this highlights also the possibility of creating a life full of happiness, happiness in the sense of, in the deep sense of true well-being and flourishing, not the fleeting pleasure, but it depends on ourselves. So what can we do from within? That's the general context for this reflection that I would like to share with you today. So what is life and how can we live a better life has been universal questions throughout the history of all humankind, and the meaning, the pursuit of meaning, has been a deep subject. And here, in the context of philosophy from ancient Greek, because I highlight philosophy from that time because all scientific endeavor started from philosophy, because in ancient time, philosophy studies everything. And from philosophy, science is structured, and Aristotle was one of the first people who structured the different disciplines of studies of the world and the phenomenon. So humanity's search for meaning in life has been a central theme in different disciplines like philosophy, psychology, and religion. As individuals seek to understand their purpose and place in the world, this quest for meaning is fundamental to human existence, driving people to explore and fulfill their potential through various life pursuits and reflective practices. So everyone has different ideas, perhaps, on the meaning of life, the purpose of life. But I think we could be in tune with the three ideas that I mentioned at the beginning. Like, we look for well-being, we look for growth, we also look for service or transcendent. area of life. And in terms of Aristotle's thinking, in his reflection, he mentioned the idea of eudaimonia, which can be often translated into the term human flourishing, which can be considered as the highest good of human life in this line of reflection, Aristotelian reflection. And the concept of human flourishing posits that true happiness and fulfillment are achieved through the cultivation of virtues. I think this is quite important to go back to the original thoughts, one of the lines of thoughts that became the base for the modern scientific search in positive psychology and different interdisciplinary search for empirical evidence and a different search in nowadays in the subject of well-being. So cultivation of virtues is one of the topics that is highly related to the human flourishing. And living a life of rational activity or conscious or intentional activity in accordance with one's true nature is something that could be related to the highest meaning in life, according to Aristotle. In this view, eudaimonia is not merely a fleeting state of pleasure, but a sustained condition of living well and actualizing one's potential. So I'm integrating this topic of human flourishing in the universal search of human life. So what is human flourishing and eudaimonia? I think we could review very briefly. So human flourishing or eudaimonia has been considered as one of the highest ideals of human life. And it's multifaceted, it's multidimensional and comprehensive state of well-being that integrates various dimensions of human life, including physical health. Of course, if we don't have physical health, we are not living the well-being, but also psychological resilience, emotional stability in the internal life, and also social connectedness, interpersonal and positive relationships with others, and the cultivation of moral and intellectual virtues. So this part is the transcendental area related to the multifaceted human flourishing. So this concept extends beyond mere happiness or the absence of illness, focusing instead on the continuous growth and realization of one's potential through the pursuit of personal growth, meaningful engagement with life challenges, and realization of one's potential across multiple domains. So it's a concept that is quite large and wide and deep, and it's highly complex to define what exactly is human flourishing. But what we know is that it's multifaceted. It's not just cultivating physical health or psychological well-being, but it's much bigger and much more integral. So this search for human flourishing starts from within. So this is what is quite commonly talked in the context of human flourishing, which is individual human flourishing. So that this is what we can do today in this moment and the moments that follow, of course. And so this starts from oneself. So in order to have the cultivation of human flourishing, of course, it's really good to study what is human flourishing, what it consists. But also, it's important to have the tools and practices so that we could apply in our daily life. And then, in addition to individual human flourishing, we also look for collective human flourishing at the societal level, in communities, organizations, or even circles of friends and family. So this is another important point of human flourishing that is not only within ourselves, but also in relation to others and broader societal structures. And up until this point, I think human flourishing has been talked at the individual and collective level, but more important, another element is the global flourishing, considering the entire planet, the well-being of the ecosystem of the planet and nature and other beings like animals, of course, including all humanity. So as human ideal, we need to expand the concept of flourishing from individual and some collective levels to the global scale. So recent tendency is to look for more integral model of flourishing for all. So going back to eudaimonia, so the human flourishing comes from this idea of eudaimonia, and it's a Greek word. And within this term, there are two roots, I would say. The word eu, which means good or well, and daimon, which literally means spirit. And in the context of human flourishing, so the first part, eu, is related to a state of well-being, it's being well, but also it's related to virtues, it's cultivating all the goodness within ourselves. On the other hand, daimon represents an inner spirit, or we can say true self or inner self, or in general, the inner life that we have within that one seeks to realize and harmonize with. So those two roots of the word eudaimonia are quite important in considering how we can construct human flourishing, starting from within and trying to expand without and at the global level as well. So in this sense, the cultivation of virtues and self-awareness has been identified as the elements of practices that contribute to our human flourishing. So eu, as we said, it means goodness, it means good, well. So it's connected with virtue at the practical level. And daimon is related to self-awareness. It's the search for the connection with inner self. So I emphasize those 2 points because those are quite practical. And in the topic of positive psychology, at the end of this webinar, I'd like to mention a little bit of mindfulness and character strengths. Those are two of the biggest, I would say, two of the biggest subjects of study within positive psychology, in addition to, of course, different other constructs and subjects. But mindfulness can be cultivated through deliberate attention in the present moment and thus cultivating self-awareness. So cultivation of awareness, attention, or consciousness is something that is related to well-being as well. More focused mind is happier than distracted mind, I would say. So this is where mindfulness is as one of the tools, of course, not the only tools to cultivate self-awareness, but as one of the tools that enhance the cultivation of self-awareness. And of course, we might know the character strengths and virtues. So what consists of virtues could be seen as character strengths. Those are ingredients or elements that contribute to the development of bigger and larger virtues. So we have those two elements within positive psychology, character strength and mindfulness, as practical tools and educational programs, which has different, more and more different studies published each year. So going back to this idea of virtue and self-awareness, so those are two important areas. in this line of reflection. So, so know thyself is the word that we have seen, and which is related to self-awareness, and the cultivation of virtue is related to human flourishing directly. And yes, those are the 2 points that I wanted to highlight. So those are the foundational base for the idea of human flourishing. Going back to its origin, of course, nowadays there are so many areas of research dividing into different elements that contribute to human flourishing. But I think it's quite an opportunity to go back to simplify and capture the essence of this concept. And as we said, the concept of human flourishing is multidimensional in its nature. So there are different models of course, human flourishing. But this one, called SPIRE model, is quite practical, of course. Different. This is a 5 areas of life that we can cultivate, where we can cultivate human flourishing, well-being. The first one is spiritual well-being, leading a life with purpose and mindfully savoring the moment. Deepening in the self-awareness may fall into this category. P represents physical well-being, of course, listening and caring for the body, cultivating different health habits that contributes to our well-being. And I represents intellectual. This is a mental aspect, a cognitive aspect, cultivating a lifelong love of learning, wisdom, and art. It's something to do with keep learning and keep maintaining the mental well-being. The relational well-being or social well-being, we could say, contributing to and benefiting from society is to build a positive relationship with others and is to cultivate the connection with others. And lastly, emotional well-being, developing resilience, enjoying positive emotions, cultivating emotional transformation, emotional intelligence, emotional regulations. And there are different topics, of course, in each areas of well-being. So SPIRE model is something I have been promoting as well in the educational settings because it's quite practical and we can categorize different areas of research and practices into the 5 areas of life. But of course, those 5 are not only, I mean, the human flourishing is not limited to only 5 areas, but those are the 5 fundamental, essential areas of. So as we have seen, multidimensional well-being acknowledges that human thriving or human flourishing is not a single fixed state, but an ongoing process that integrates physical well-being, maintaining vitality, health, bodily awareness, and this comes into the importance of mindful living as well, to be aware of one's breathing, inhaling and exhaling, and feeling the body, how it feels, how is the posture, and to increase bodily awareness is related to increased well-being as well. So not only it's not only doing physical exercises, sleeping well, eating well, but also to have bodily awareness. And of course, psychological well-being, as we have seen, developing resilience, cognitive flexibility, and the balanced emotional state, which is related to also emotional, we could say psychological, mental, emotional well-being here, and social well-being, and spiritual well-being, of course, can be also put in the term of existential well-being in some contexts, finding purpose, aligning one's values, and embracing a sense of transcendence or interconnectedness. So those can be studied scientifically and with rigorous methods. We could, and there has been a large body of research going on in different domains of life that contributes to well-being. So it's multidimensional. And in addition to 5 dimensions that I have already mentioned, some of the models use the additional elements. Here, in the case of the University of Harvard Wellness Center, they integrate 3 more dimensions in addition to physical, relational, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual. Those are SPIRE model. They include environmental well-being, so the connection with nature, but also the care for the environment of the planet. In addition to vocational well-being, because most people spend the most time in life working, so to cultivate well-being at work or through vocational profession is one of the areas quite important. In addition to financial well-being, it's the use of resources wisely to maintain the peace of mind, of course. And all elements, all dimensions are interrelated. So when we improve physical well-being, we can also improve emotional or intellectual, mental well-being. When we have deeper sense of purpose, all activities at work or social connections might have different and higher effects, purpose in everything we do. So this is another consideration. Of course, there are different models. Of course, PERMA is one of the first models in positive psychology, proposed by Martin Seligman. So positive emotions, engagement, positive relationships, meaning and achievement, those are the elements that contribute to well-being. And some of the models, of course, include physical health. So it's quite common to see PERMA H model, and some of the models also include other elements that is considered important. And here I highlight mindfulness as one of the elements that can be included in a model. And of course, character strengths and virtues are the base for all of these elements of psychological or inner well-being. So cultivating virtues now is very visible with this classification of VIA classification of virtues, when character strengths and virtues. So here we have the little bit of glimpse of the multidimensionality of human flourishing. And of course, there are different models, much more complex. This is called life model. This is used in the framework in the applied positive psychology taught at the University of East London. This quadrant reflects our 4 aspects of life in different aspects of the subjective or objective, individual or collective. So at the subjective individual level, this is inner life of the individual. So it's a conscious experience that we are having, which is totally subjective and not necessarily physical. So this is related to mind. But we also have, as an individual, an objective side of life, which is connected to body. And at the collective level, we have inner, subjective, invisible states, which can be considered as culture. Those are the shared values at the intersubjective level. But also something visible or objective is the society, how it looks like the society and material systems and structures. So life model implies the cultivation of human flourishing in each area within ourselves, in the mind, and also the body, which is something that can be observed, and also at the collective level, both inside and outside. And this is just a starting point of this model, but it can be more complex in its nature. But I'm not going to dive into this model, but just to demonstrate that there are different areas of human flourishing. So in all these areas of human flourishing, the cultivation of virtues might be seen as the foundation for all transformation and improvement. So going back to Aristotle, flourishing is not simply about experiencing pleasure or success, but is achieved through the cultivation of virtues. And there are different areas of life, and in order to maintain physical well-being, we can apply virtues like temperance, of course, character strength of self-regulation, perseverance to maintain healthy habits, and in order to maintain psychological or emotional well-being, we can apply the character strengths of bravery, curiosity, love and kindness, and so on. So there are at the base of all these cultivations of well-being, there are virtues. And here it comes the importance of metacognition that I want to mention briefly. How to cultivate virtues. So we are talking about the virtues, but in order to cultivate courage, temperance, compassion, it's necessarily important to make it conscious. So this capacity of being aware and to be able to intentionally change our behavior, to change our emotions and thoughts and all the inner elements is a crucial area for the cultivation of virtue. So metacognition and intentional practice with those focus or approaches, virtues become not just moral ideals, but embodied habits, living habits, guiding us toward a state of harmony, wisdom, true fulfillment. So what exactly is metacognition? So metacognition is often defined as the awareness of one's own thinking when we are aware of what's going on within ourselves, including thoughts, emotions, and different mental states. It's considered as the metacognition. Meta implies something beyond. So it's not just a cognition that we are thinking. Now, with metacognition, we are aware that we are thinking. So this is the difference between the simple cognition and the metacognition. And this is the foundation for self-transformation. In order to change ourselves, it's necessary to have this conscious element of awareness. And it enables us to observe our thoughts, emotions, sometimes biases, fostering deeper sense of self-regulation, rooted in metacognition can be cultivated in different ways, but some of the contemplative traditions with practices like meditation, mindfulness, has been associated with some of the best ways to cultivate metacognition. And of course, in the search of more scientific areas of cognitive science that studies the mental processes in different areas, have highlighted the importance of metacognition for decision-making, emotional intelligence, or adaptive learning. So metacognition is an important element for well-being in that we can make a better decision for our own actions, habits, and also we can have more awareness and intelligence about our own emotions and thought processes and keep learning. And by cultivating this reflective capacity, which is metacognition, we can have better clarity and better control over our mental states. We can monitor well what's happening inside, and also we can control, or we can have the self-regulation of what's going on inside. So we can direct our inner life towards our ideals, which in this context, we are talking about human flourishing. So there are similar concepts here, like metacognition. When we talk about metacognition, we can also hear meta-awareness, which is another similar topic, which is the ability to monitor and reflect the current contents of consciousness. It involves being aware of one's own thoughts, feelings, and experiences as they occur in the present moment. So meta-awareness can be a bit broader concept in that It's the awareness of everything that's going on. And metacognition focuses more on the cognitive process, what's going on inside. And meta consciousness could be something that is less talked about, but it's the explicit awareness of contents of one's own consciousness. And at the deeper level, it's the consciousness of consciousness in some way. In other words, that we are aware that there is something that is aware within ourselves. So this is quite unique to human being, this capacity of self-consciousness. So in cultivating these concepts, those are related indeed. It's something to do with the cultivation of consciousness, cultivation of awareness. As I mentioned, mindfulness is one of the practices that can enhance meta-awareness or metacognition, although it's not the only practice. But this is something quite important for the development of virtues. So I want to connect the metacognition with the virtues, which is not the principal approach that exists right now in this moment, but I'm hoping that in the future there will be more research on the integration of metacognition or meta-awareness with virtues. So just I would like to add lastly this concept of the golden mean of virtues. So we have seen that the human flourishing is a universal search in human life and the search for meaning in life. And eudaimonia is the original concept, and it's related to virtues and self-awareness. So now we are reflecting the possibility of consciously transforming our life from within, and especially in this context, within focusing on the virtues. But this topic is fascinating. Also comes from Aristotelian philosophy. The golden mean means the desirable middle ground or middle way between two extremes, one of excess and the other of deficiency. So according to Aristotle, all virtues fall into the middle way. And when we excess in the expression of any virtue, it's not going to be virtuous. And on the other hand, if we lack in the expression of virtues, it's not virtuous either. So in this sense, it's a constant balance or in the expression of virtues, which brings us the true cultivation of virtues. So this is the ability called practical wisdom in the ancient term phronesis. Achieving the golden mean requires this phronesis or practical wisdom. It's the ability to discern the right course of action in any given situation. It's to know where is the middle way, middle ground of virtue continuum. This is an example. So in the middle is the virtuous state. So when we can name any virtue or character strength or any quality, it's in the middle. Love, respect, humility, temperance, courage, and so on. When we express too much temperance, for example, it's too much self-regulation. So it's too strict and too rigid. So it's not virtuous in excess. But on the other hand, if we lack in the expression of temperance, we don't have self-control, and it's a deficient state. So it's not virtuous at all. In terms of respect, for example, if we respect too much in excess, so there is a little bit of too much concern in different things. And if we lack in this respect, it's simply disregard or disrespect. So this virtue continuum is something that has to be conscious. So this comes in, this is where the metacognitive awareness helps us to cultivate virtues. So it's a fundamental, I consider that it's a fundamental ability that we need to to cultivate within ourselves to expand our virtues in the balanced way. So as a practical tool, mindfulness and character strengths, as I mentioned, has been the scientifically studied tools that are available, and mindfulness relates to self-awareness, and virtues will be related to character strengths. So this is maybe the last slide I have. This one represents mindfulness in the visual way, because mindfulness is a capacity that we can all cultivate. It's a self-regulation of attention with curiosity, openness, acceptance. So the first part of mindfulness is to be aware, to cultivate attention in the present moment. So here comes the awareness in the present moment. The moment we come back to our physical bodily awareness, or the awareness of what's happening inside, or the awareness of breathing, we are living in the state of mindfulness. But we can also cultivate different attitudes of mindfulness. That's what it's called. For example, acceptance. We can come back to the present moment, to be aware of this moment with acceptance, with patience, with the attitude of letting go, generosity or gratitude or empathy. So those are quite important in the sense that it's not about just paying attention, but it's about how to pay attention. So with gratitude, attitude, with being grateful, and I'm present, and I am confident, and I'm in the present. So those are a little bit of the visualization of what mindfulness could be. And the integration of mindfulness character strengths has been the really important breakthrough in positive psychology, both in research and practice in the last decade. And integrating based on this mindfulness practice, we can also cultivate consciously, using mindfulness consciously, we can cultivate those character strengths within the 6 virtues. So here is a little bit of conceptual mapping of what can be done in this search for human flourishing. So based on this subject, we can apply character strengths in all areas of life. This is just an example of the multidimensional well-being. So this comes the integration of the reflection today. In summary, we have integrated in a reversed way, but the necessity of cultivating multidimensional well-being, which is related to the golden mean of virtues. In general, the cultivation of virtues, but I introduced a little bit of this idea of the golden mean, which totally requires self-awareness, metacognition. So mindfulness and character strengths can be one of the tools, one of the practices that foster this inner search and inner transformation. So some takeout messages would be that metacognition promotes conscious cultivation of well-being. And well-being is multidimensional, where metacognition contributes to its well-rounded awareness by guiding self-reflection, intentional action, and alignment with core values. And the golden mean of virtue serves as a framework for cultivating balance, ensuring that each dimension of well-being is nurtured through wisdom, moderation, ethical excellence, leading to a flourishing and fulfilled life. So here I conclude my sharing of synthesis of a little bit of this integration of what can be expanded in the field of positive psychology and beyond in the present time and hopefully in the future. So thank you very much for listening. And now I think we can have some space for Q&A. If there are some questions over there, not sure in the chat if there are questions.
Thank you, Masaya. as you said, that was comprehensive, based on philosophy, because, as you said, it is fundamental to understanding even science and psychology. Secondly, also, you have brought together very key concepts in positive psychology around well-being. And you have brought the traditional mindfulness practices and how they are linked up. Yes, any questions, please? And those of you who are asking for slides, uh, we have the recording on the YouTube, and the link has been shared. Or if you go to YouTube, you will see, if you search on Positive Psychology Kenya, you will see our past webinars. All right, questions and comments. And those of you who are from Kenyan context, who have been with us for a long time, some of these things you might have heard before, but also there are additions that Masai has brought out, please text your questions as I keep giving a summary of what I have picked up, especially very unique concepts. In terms of the well-being, I particularly liked the SPIRE model. We have talked about PERMA model and other models. Now, the SPIRE model is also very interesting. And Moses here also texts saying, I fell in love with SPIRE model. That's interesting. I have also noted the things around right at the beginning, the three basic needs of human beings. Well-being, that is also search for happiness. Growth, that is also improvement, not only in the at the individual level, but also in the collective level and all around us. And then the contribution, service, and that's also related to purpose in life. And then the new insight for me around the flourishing was beyond individual and collective flourishing, also global and ecological. That was very, very insightful as well. And I suppose always when we listen to these presentations, we always add to our own knowledge. Other comments, other questions? You're welcome. At one point, we had 120. Yes. I appreciate the golden mean virtues. Yeah, golden mean of virtues from Aristotle. Love the subjective versus objective analysis. Kamal, would you like to expand that a little bit?
Okay.
Yes.
Can I? Okay.
Yeah. Can you text, please? Because it will
Okay.
be easier that way. Okay, Dave Gracias, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I would like to ask, when it comes to virtue of gratitude, can we have an excessive gratitude or perhaps maybe extreme gratitude when you are talking about the balancing? Because according to one scholar, the uh, the upward of gratitude is that there is no downward of gratitude. So I don't know how you can synthesize it with this statement, whether we have excessive gratitude when you look at the extreme when you are talking about balancing.
Oh, that's great. That's a great question, actually. In the excess of gratitude, and it's in the context of golden mean, I would go back to the slide in the virtue continuum. So in the case of gratitude, there's no example here, but if we are too grateful, or if we are expressing too much gratitude, it can be mechanic or automatic sometimes. We say thank you, we say we appreciate that, but sometimes with too much repetition or too much frequency in the expression of gratitude, it might feel like there's not so much connection. So that's one of the areas that we have seen in the practical area, in the excess of gratitude. Not sure if there are some research on that, but it's definitely possible. In all virtues, it's possible to have excess versions and deficient versions, and those two extremes are not virtuous. So in the case of gratitude, I just mentioned one example, but maybe we can also reflect on how gratitude can be in excess and how it's not going to be virtuous. So that will be my response.
Okay, great. We have Dr. Chris Limo from Tanzania. Over to you, Chris.
No, I'm actually not in Tanzania,
Uh-huh.
and I'm not a doctor yet. But but thanks for the prophecy. Um, yeah, that was a very insightful presentation, and I really feel, eager to practice. And now I do aspire to be a public commentator, and I'm just wondering, in the space of, say, a disempowered community or society, how would I apply this? Where people maybe are hungry, they're poor, and as a practitioner who believes in and relies on miracles, for instance, how do you think this would play out? What that long topic. Okay, but it was really, really nice and inspiring. But how would I do this as a psychologist who is interested in people's well-being, who believes in people having a second chance? Yeah, so I don't know whether there's a question in there. Thanks.
Yes, I think it's thank you for the question. It's really an important reflection that we need to do. And of course, as Maslow's hierarchical needs of human being, if at the survival level the needs are not satisfied, of course it's going to be quite difficult to construct different areas of needs and higher purposes like we are talking about here as virtues. But of course, in the desperate needs and difficulties at the survival level, there is something that maybe as psychologists we could work on is to give hope, of course, is to improve the inner states, despite of the fact that physically or environmentally there might be some difficult situations, but we can consider the different peoples in that situation. But some of them are having difficulties in mental states, having negative thoughts or having different um, uh, unbalance. I would say unbalance. No, normally we could talk about that, but difficult state internally and mentally. But some people can be hopeful, can be grateful, and I think those practices like gratitude, for example, is quite important. That it can transform the inner quality of life despite the external difficulties. So promoting virtues, I consider that it's relevant even for that kind of situation and context.
Wonderful. There are other comments and questions on the chat box. Generally, a great appreciation of the presentation. Thank you very much. Very insightful, good presentation. Someone says the virtue continuum is quite insightful. It was a great presentation. Now, there's a question from Vivian. Very insightful. And what I think is new to me is flourishing at a global level. Maybe if you can just share some examples of this. So, Messiah, a little more expansion of that global level of flourishing.
Yes, that's I think quite new in this field, and externally it can be talked about policy making at the governmental level, how all the governments and the big organizations create environments and international relationships and international endeavor to improve the well-being among people. So this is an external area that's going on. Of course, some countries have been implementing well-being policies. So this is a positive indication that we are observing right now. But in this context, of course, I would like to add from the internal awareness. So as an individual, I look for my own flourishing, but I also look for collective flourishing. I care for others. I care for my family, my friends, everyone that I come across in life, and all human beings. So the expansion of planetary awareness or global awareness within oneself is something that we can work for as well. So in other words, we can now expand that flourishing is for everybody, and we also need to take care of the environment and ecosystem and animals. So when we expand our consciousness at the global level, or to consider the well-being of the planet as a whole, it may change our behavior as well. So we would not perhaps commit to some actions that could cause harm in the environment, but because of the expansion of our awareness, that could happen. So at the individual level, I think it can also be practiced, this global flourishing from within.
Great. There is one more another question around metacognition. At which level of being can someone experience metacognition? Would you like to comment on that, Masaya?
Yes. At which level of what words did you say?
Which level of being?
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think everybody has the capacity to be metacognitive. We can do it just quickly now, but now we are breathing in and breathing out. So this is breathing in, breathing out, this act of breathing. But now we can be aware that we are inhaling and exhaling. There is an awareness that is observing the breathing. So this is a very simple exercise that we are not just breathing, but there is an awareness of the breathing. So I use the breathing because it's quite simple, but the breathing can be replaced to thinking or emotions. So we can be aware of our thoughts, we can be aware of our emotions. So in that sense, maybe it's not common to have this kind of training in education or in society or culture, but I think every human being has the capacity to cultivate well-being. I mean, where the metacognition.
Okay, thank you. Next question. How will one know that they have attained balance in virtues and has reached that point of self-consciousness without being extremists?
Oh, that's it. Yes, I think I consider that it's a lifelong journey. There is never an end that we can say that I'm graduated from the virtual continuum and everything is in the middle way. It's not going to happen, perhaps, and it's a lifelong journey and it's continuous improvement and growth that's going on. And I think one of the indicators that subjectively that we could feel where is the virtuous middle way is that when we feel at peace. I think this is something quite important. When we express some virtues or character strengths, when we feel at peace, when we are in harmony within, without agitating, without uh, having anxiety and so on. So that state of peace could be one of the indicators, the subjective, of course, self-reflexive indicators that we can use, that we can refer to in order to know if we are practicing virtues in the middle way.
Okay. There is another comment about your concept of universal search in human life, the three elements of growth, flourishing, or well-being, and service and contribution. This is very powerful, and Caroline appreciates that. Someone wants the slides, but I would say you could go to the YouTube channel for the recording, and that would be a better way. How can individuals develop metacognition to enhance self-regulation and virtue cultivation in their daily routine? That's a question. How can individuals develop metacognition? Any interventions to develop metacognition?
Yeah, there are so many interventions and training programs for metacognition, but something that I would recommend that is something that is very quick and that we can incorporate even now is what I just said about breathing. To practice conscious breathing is having benefits for physical health and also psychological tranquility. So to be aware of our breathing as much as possible during the day is one of the practices that we can do. So I would say, I would ask all of you today, how many times did you breathe consciously today? Maybe some of you say once, or maybe twice, or maybe never, perhaps. And it's quite common that we breathe unconsciously. But when we bring our breathing as a to a conscious process, we are cultivating different neural connections. We can also see that in neuroscientific research, that the changes that happens in the brain when we cultivate attention, cultivate the connection with breathing. So this is something that can be really, really practical, to be reminded several times a day or many times a day to breathe deeply, even if it's just 3 deep breathing, 3 inhalation and 3 exhalations. That can help as well. Of course, other practices like meditation, contemplative practices, and mindfulness, those are intensive training for this kind of capacity that we can develop within. So
great.
That's my answer.
There is a comment from Shagembe of the Tanzanian Association of Psychology. Thank you very much, Dr. Masaya, for this very informative presentation. My question is, what would be a comment regarding the need to decolonize the concepts and practices around well-being and flourishing as far as socio-cultural context? The context shape the way we see and interpret the world and our inner states. I don't know if, Masaya, you get that.
I'm not sure, but perhaps I'm imagining that the question is like there is existential beliefs and social systems as well, but how we can transform that maybe conceptually and structurally. So
Maybe let me clarify that the way I
yeah.
have understood. Those of us who are from the developing world, like most of sub-Saharan Africa and parts of Asia, we feel that some of the ideas that we are reading in our textbooks and hearing on this sort of lectures are ideas that are foreign to us. And it also comes from an assumption like psychological theories and all that. Assumption is that they are universal. But I think this question is sort of challenging that and saying that the way as an African one might interpret their inner state could be different from the way a person would interpret the world and the inner state from the European context. So how do the need to decolonize these
Oh yeah.
concepts? Yeah.
Yes. In the scientific world, of course, the Western thoughts, I mean, the European thoughts and North American thoughts could be quite dominant. So Recently, there is in positive psychology as well. Positive psychology itself started in the United States and the West. I mean, the European West is in general. So the intercultural studies has been actually the topic for the last the international conference on positive psychology as well, to include more studies on cross-cultural studies in Africa, in Asia, and different areas of the world outside Europe and North America, and also Latin America as well. So this is the tendency that usually the European or North American concepts grow first, and then there is a validation if it works or if it doesn't work in different areas of the world. So I think there are some efforts now in the promotion of studies in areas of the world outside Europe and North America. So in that sense, we can decolonize. Yes, I understand, and to integrate the local concepts as well. So although I tried to talk the topic of human flourishing as a universal way, but it might not be universal in some situations and cultures. So the contributions in Kenya or Tanzania or Africa will be very useful for the collective knowledge and wisdom for the humanity. So please contribute.
Yes, that's what I would like to say, Akena Shagambe. One thing is, from South Africa, our colleagues in South Africa have contributed a lot to cross-cultural positive psychology. So that's a challenge to us. How do we use these universal concepts or claimed universal concepts as a baseline and point out to particularities from our own cultures and our consciousness? Yeah. Yes, there is also a lot of words of appreciation. Someone says listening to Messiah has affirmed the emerging direction of wellness or well-being and personal introspection for happiness and enjoying peace. Okay. Uh, yes, there has been some sideline comments. Thank you, sir. Please tell us briefly on your work. Yeah. Tell us briefly on your work, especially around mindfulness-based strengths practice.
Oh, yes.
I was also curious about your work in neuroscience.
Oh, yes. I apply this mindfulness and character strengths program. Actually, I have additional slides in case there were questions. So I prepared this integration of mindfulness and characters. There is a program called Mindfulness-Based Strength Practice, which is quite a popular mindfulness program in positive psychology. So I apply this program. It's a well-structured 8-week course to the whole university community where I work. So I, as a master trainer, I was given that title, but I want to be humble to that. But I train professors and teachers at the university. I have already trained more than 1,000 professors and teachers to be able so that they could offer this program for their students. So at Student, we have more than 60,000 students at the university. So the students are now taking this course, the mindfulness and character strengths, and they also talk about a little bit of meta awareness and virtues. So this is one of the things that I'm doing at the educational level, and I'm trying to publish the data we have collected very soon. And also in terms of neuroscience, there is another course called Healthy Minds program. There is a neuroscientist called Richard Davidson. Not sure if you have heard of Richard Davidson. Has been investigating the effect of meditation on the brain for decades. And now he's integrating more in different insights from the past research into educational program as well. So I have been applying and sharing and training the application called Healthy Minds program. That is something I also recommend. Healthy Minds program. It's called the name of the application. And there are contents like neuroscientific-based evidence of the explanation of how meditation works and how different aspects of well-being can be trained. And there are guided meditations as well. So I'm also trying to implement this program for students and the whole university community. So fortunately, the university where I work has incorporated the whole concept of positive psychology like from more than 10 years ago. So the whole university is working to improve the well-being of students as well as professors and staff and everyone at the university. So this is one of the aspects that among any other projects that I have a lot of projects going on, but some of the projects that I do is this related to mindfulness and character strengths promotion.
Great. I think we should wind up at this point. Thank you once again, Masaya, for your presentation and sharing the time with us, very valuable time. From your presentation, it was clear that you have really an expertise in these three areas, I would say, of flourishing and virtue and metacognition. And the interventions like mindfulness are that promote metacognition. Okay, so thank you very much. And everyone, thank you very much for your participation today. Let me take some time to share my screen here of the upcoming webinars. So mark the dates. So the next webinar will be on the 26th of March. So our webinars are always on the fourth Wednesdays of the month at our East African time, 5:30. So we also want to invite Kenyan scholars who are abroad and our practitioners. So the next two will be they are Kenyans, native Kenyans, right now in Germany. Pamela Miano, known to some of us. I think she was actually online today as a participant on the topic of cultivating positive relations. She is completing her PhD at the German university. Then also Evelyn Busa, who is actually a school counselor at the International School at Bern, and she will present in April. Then Anish Kumar from India, who will present in May. The topic is to be confirmed. And in June, we have our Resilience Among Refugees by Tom Hendricks, someone who also is associated with the Amref University here in Kenya. So we have this lineup, international in their own right. So just mark the dates, look for our link, and the link is basically going to be the same Zoom link. It's a repetitive session. So even if you remember in the last minute, you can always log in. And our presentations are always also going live on YouTube. So you can go back to them and watch them in case you miss them or you want to really make yourself more conversant with the topics. So once again, thank you very much. Thank you, Masaya. Really, we appreciate your availability and your simplicity in being available, as well as making the concepts accessible to the lay members of the positive psychology movement, now global now. Thank you. So have a good night if you're in our part of the world, and a good day to Masaya. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All the best. Yeah. Bye. Bye. Yeah.
Thank you, Father. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you very much. Good night. Let's do this again.
Much appreciated.
Thank you, Father.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.